Late at night, south of Marseille, France, about 60 kilometers out in the Mediterranean Sea, a Spanish fishing boat, drifting through the stormy, rain-soaked sea, a crewman spotted a man floating in the water. He quickly called the others to pull him aboard. It was a young man. He was still bleeding. The old cook cut open his wetsuit and pulled 2 bullets from his back. He also found a strange bulge beneath the skin. He dug it out. It turned out to be a tiny laser device projecting onto the wall, displaying the word Zurich and a Gammersa bank account number. With the cook's care, the young man regained consciousness. After 2 weeks aboard, he had fully recovered. But what troubled him was, he couldn't remember who he was. Staring at the vast sea, sorrow washed over him. The boat docked in Spain. The kind old cook gave him some money. Not much, but enough to get him to Zurich, Switzerland. The young man walked out of the harbor, wandering aimlessly, and soon disappeared into the crowd. He took a train to Zurich, Switzerland. It was already late at night when he arrived at Gammersa Bank. In the snowy night, the bank was closed. With nowhere to go and no identification, he had no choice but to sleep on a park bench. 2 night patrol officers woke him up. They told him he couldn't stay overnight in the park and demanded to see his identification. He told them his ID was lost. The officers decided to take him in. One of them reached out with his baton. The man suddenly grabbed the baton. In just a few moves, he knocked both officers down. He also seized a Sig Sauer P225, a 9mm pistol, the standard sidearm of Swiss and German police. The man was completely stunned. He had no idea why he could possess such extraordinary combat skills. He fled in panic, throwing off his jacket as he ran. That's an agent's technique. When danger closes in, you seize control in an instant and change appearance quickly while escaping. In Langley, Virginia, USA, stands the infamous Central Intelligence Agency, known as the CIA, and within it, there exists an extremely secret program known only to a select few, a global assassination operation called Treadstone. The purpose of this program is to eliminate threats to the United States worldwide. The founder of the program is a senior CIA official named Abbott. Abbott's subordinate is Conklin, who runs the Treadstone operation. Both men were extremely anxious because 2 weeks earlier, they had planned an assassination in France targeting the exiled Nigerian government leader. But the mission failed, and the assassin scent went missing. If this were exposed, this disgraceful Treadstone program would be revealed to the world. Everything would come to light, and they would end up in prison. The next day, the young man entered Gammersa Bank. As he registered his account, he carefully observed all surrounding exits. He was taken into the vault area. A staff member led him into a private room, then placed a metal case on the table. The man tightly closed the curtains before opening it. The first layer inside the case contained contact lenses that could change eye color, a Tag Heuer Link watch, a transit card, a black bank card, and a U.S. passport. He opened the passport and felt a wave of relief. He had finally found his name. The passport read Jason Bourne, address in Paris. Sex male. Opening the second layer, the tone suddenly changed. Inside was a Sig Pro SP 2009 pistol, cash in multiple currencies, and 7 passports. Each one carried his photo, but with different names. He was completely stunned again. So, who was he really? Why would he store a gun in a bank? And so many passports? For now, we'll call him Bourne. Bourne emptied everything out and packed it into his bag, leaving the gun behind in the case. Twice he left the gun behind. Deep down, Bourne didn't want to carry a weapon. In other words, he didn't want to kill. As Bourne returned the case and left, a middle-aged man silently watched him. He was a CIA informant inside the bank. He phoned the CIA. Bourne walked out of the bank. He felt like every cop on the street was after him because he attacked 2 officers the night before. Bourne slipped into the U.S. Embassy. The guards blocked the Swiss police outside. While standing in line, he noticed a woman arguing with a visa officer. Her visa still hadn't been approved. She was almost out of money for rent. Bourne noticed the cameras were all aimed at him. He sensed danger closing in, so he turned to leave, but an agent stopped him. The agent moved in with his hands raised. On both sides of Bourne, 2 guards also closed in. One of them put a hand on his shoulder. Bourne struck back in a flash, leaving all 3 no time to react. You can clearly see he targeted their arms and elbows, striking the throat and abdomen, instantly disabling them. They collapsed to the floor. The technique Bourne used is commonly trained in special forces, Filipino Kali martial arts, He quickly dropped the guards, then ran into the emergency stairwell. That too is an agent's skill. Before operating in an unfamiliar place, spend 20 seconds observing your surroundings. Anticipate dangers and solutions, routes and exits. Bourne took a radio from a downed guard. U.S. troops inside the embassy were armed with M16 rifles, searching the corridors for him. Using the radio intel and the map he tore from the wall, he deduced their positions to evade them. Bourne kicked open a locked storage room and reached the balcony. Using the wall's gaps, he climbed safely down to the ground. Bourne entered the alley beside the embassy. He saw the girl from the embassy. Her visa had been denied. She was about to drive away. She was about to leave. Her car was a small red Mini Cooper. Bourne approached her. He said he heard she needed money, and he wanted to go to Paris. Bourne said they could help each other. He offered her $20,000 to drive him to Paris. When she heard that, she instinctively refused the stranger. But, unexpectedly, Bourne tossed her a thick stack of cash. Bourne was straightforward. He prepaid her $10,000. As a result, the girl, truly in need, accepted the deal. Meanwhile, back in Langley, the Treadstone command team was feverishly searching for everything on Jason Bourne. When Conklin, the man in charge, heard that a man carrying a red bag had taken down several people inside the embassy and escaped without a scratch, he was certain it was Bourne, the assassin from the failed mission. But he didn't know Bourne had lost his memory. To eliminate any loose ends, Conklin activated every sleeper assassin stationed across Europe under Treadstone. Codename, The Professor. ID, 893489. Location, Barcelona. Activated. Codename, Mannheim. Location, Hamburg, Germany. Activated. Codename, Castel. ID, 978634. Location, Rome. Activated. On the road to Paris, the woman Bourne had just met was chatting non-stop about Biarritz on the French coast and her awful experience renting a surfboard. She kept talking because she was nervous, while Bourne stayed silent and listened. She looked a little annoyed. Bourne explained, "Listening to you talk is a kind of rest for me." That line made the young woman lower her guard a little. Bourne told her about his amnesia, but she didn't quite believe him. Conklin's team kept working through the night. They checked surveillance footage and found Bourne got into a woman's car. For the CIA, the world's most far-reaching intelligence agency, they quickly pulled her file. Her name was Marie Kreutz, 26, born in Hanover, Germany. She had a half-brother on her mother's side, currently unemployed and drifting around. Photos and data on Bourne and Marie were sent to Nikki, their Paris contact, and Nikki used that information to create a wanted notice and distributed it to every activated assassin. Bourne and Marie drove to Bourne's place at his Paris address. From the landlady's warm greeting at the door, it was clear Bourne had lived there for a long time. Bourne's room was spotless. Marie used the bathroom to freshen up, while Bourne searched the place, looking for clues to recover his memory. He used the landline phone to call back numbers he'd dialed before, asking if they knew someone named Bourne. One of them seemed to be his workplace. They said Bourne died in a car accident 2 weeks ago. His family came in to report it, but they left no contact information. Clearly, someone was covering up the real cause of his death. Just then, Bourne heard something inside and rushed to check it. What was that? The one crashing in through the window was Castel, an assassin from Rome. He was holding an Israeli-made Micro Gallo 5, 56mm assault rifle, one of the smallest and lightest assault rifles in the world. Bourne knocked the rifle out of Castel's hands, and the two went at it barehanded. Here, Bourne used Kali again, targeting the joints. With his martial arts skills, Bourne swiftly dealt with this Castel character. In the end, Bourne broke his arm and his knee, leaving Castel completely incapacitated. Bourne tossed Castel's bag to Marie, who was frozen in fear, telling her to see what was inside, while Bourne interrogated Castel, who he was, and who sent him. Bourne asked in English, then in Dutch and Luxembourgish. To ask Castel those same questions, Marie found a kill order in Castel's bag, and her photo was on it too. Marie's tightly wound nerves snapped all at once. She started screaming. Castel seized the moment and burst out through the window. He fell to his death. Suicide. One intense moment after another unfolded right in front of them. Marie's mind basically shut down. They couldn't stay here. Bourne dragged Marie, who was mentally breaking down, downstairs, and saw the landlady had been dead for some time. Bourne took advantage of the chaos at the entrance and hurried Marie out of the building. As they were leaving, a man spotted them acting suspicious. They jumped into a little red car. By then, Paris police, following witness tips, boxed the little red car in from both ends. So in the middle of bustling Paris, Bourne put on a jaw-dropping driving show. This sequence could honestly pass as an extra-long Mini Cooper ad. In the end, Bourne drove the little red car into a secluded parking lot. There, besides the ticking time bomb that was Bourne, the Treadstone team had another problem. It was that Wembosi, the Nigerian exile leader they failed to kill, was about to expose the CIA's assassination attempt. Conklin had no choice, so he assigned the professor a new hit. He decided the professor would eliminate Wembosi and pin it on Bourne. Wembosi was furious inside his mansion, chewing out his men as he came downstairs. From a distant rooftop, the professor used an SG-550 sniper rifle and took Wembosi out. The SG-550 is expensive, so only some European special forces typically use it. In the film, the professor even added a suppressor. In a small motel, to hide better and stay on the run, Bourne cut Marie's long hair short. Their skin kept brushing, and the atmosphere grew more intimate. After everything they'd been through together, two exhausted hearts drew close that night, seeking warmth. Earlier, at his Paris place, Bourne had checked some files and learned he'd once stayed at the Queen Da Hotel, so he laid out a detailed plan for Marie, telling her to go inside and get the call records from when he stayed there. But not long after, Marie walked back out. She didn't follow Bourne's instructions. Instead, she leaned on the front desk guy who liked her and got the call list with ease. Sure enough, a woman's charm often beats the most meticulous plans. Bourne looked through the call list and spotted a major security firm that had contacted him repeatedly. So Bourne went into the company to check it out. But the moment he reached the front desk, a female employee recognized him. Without a word, she took him straight to the sales director. Turns out Bourne used to be a big client there. With no memory, Bourne decided to play along, putting on the air of a VIP client to dig up details about his past. It turned out he'd posed as a rich man, deliberately trying to survey the surveillance system on Wembosi's yacht. That's why he obtained a lot of related material. Detailed information about Wembosi's yacht. Bourne didn't understand why he was so focused on Wembosi. So he and Marie drove to Wembosi's mansion. But when they arrived, Wembosi was already dead. A massive sense of conspiracy closed in on them. Marie bought a newspaper. It laid out what happened in the Wembosi case, saying an assassin named Bourne and was currently on the run. Only then did the two of them truly realize who Bourne used to be. He was an assassin. Marie was terrified. She'd been guessing all along what the man in front of her really was. What did he actually do before? Deep down, Marie felt that if Bourne were a cop or an agent, that would be easier to accept. Now she had the answer, and it left her feeling helpless and scared. Bourne wanted to take Marie somewhere safe, get her settled, and then they would say goodbye for good. Marie stood in a public phone booth and called her mother's old house in the countryside. No one answered. Marie figured she could hide there for a while, but the CIA tapped that call too. They pinpointed the location of the old country house and passed the address to the professor. Marie took Bourne there, to her mother's remote old house in the countryside. The place now belonged to her brother, and just so happened, her brother had brought his two kids back for Christmas. So he let Bourne and Marie stay. Bourne spent a quiet night there, but the next day, trouble hit. The kid's dog was gone early that morning. Bourne immediately sensed something was wrong. He quickly told Marie's brother to take the kids and hide in the basement. Bourne found a box of shotgun shells. Then, from the toys and board game boxes on the floor, he deduced there was a gun in the cabinet. Sure enough, he pulled out a classic Beretta double-barrel shotgun, and a top-tier showdown between elite assassins officially began. Bourne shot and blew up an oil drum in the yard. Meanwhile, the professor, deep in the woods, still held his SG-550, tracking every movement in the yard. The moment Bourne showed himself, he'd shoot, but thick smoke from the blast blocked his view. Bourne used the smoke and sprinted into the woods. The professor realized this was bad. He hurriedly removed the suppressor and moved out with the rifle, slipping into a sorghum field about chest-high. Bourne couldn't see the professor, but he heard birds, so he fired a shot into the air. The gunshot startled a flock out of the field. Bourne watched them circle overhead and noted where they would land. To estimate the professor's approximate position, the professor saw the birds and figured out Bourne's idea. He quickly ditched the sniper rifle and pulled out a German Walther P5 pistol, then got up and ran, trying to reposition somewhere safer. Bourne spotted him instantly. He raised his gun and hit the professor in the shoulder. Bourne stepped in and took his gun, asking who sent him. A dying man tends to speak plainly. The professor told Bourne they were the same kind of person, both assassins planted in Europe under Treadstone, and both suffered frequent headaches. This stake detail is a setup for the second film. The professor died, but what he said before dying gave Bourne, lost in the fog, a clear direction at last. From then on, he heard the name Treadstone for the first time. Bourne had Marie leave with her brother by car. If Bourne survived, they'd meet again someday. Bourne watched the car disappear. It was time to end this and find the one behind it all. Bourne searched the professor's bag and found a flip phone. He checked the most recent calls and dialed back immediately. The one who answered was Conklin, the professor's direct superior. Bourne didn't waste words. He set a meeting on Paris's Pont Neuf that afternoon. Conklin had to come alone. Then he hung up. This time, Jason Bourne finally flipped the script and took control. But how could Conklin possibly come alone? He immediately took a team and boarded a private jet, flying straight to Paris. Conklin positioned men both on and under Pont Neuf in advance, and Bourne was never going to show up. He'd seen through it early. His real goal wasn't to meet Conklin face to face, not to confront Conklin directly. Instead, he stayed at a distance to get a clear look at his face. Then he secretly tampered with their command vehicle and planted a tracker. Conklin didn't get Bourne to show up, so he decided to destroy all the files at the safe house and shut the operation down. This site was overseen by the female agent, Nikki. Even though she barely appeared in the first film, she shows up in every sequel afterward and becomes entangled with Bourne in all kinds of ways. Conklin's team was patrolling outside the house, unaware that Bourne had quietly slipped inside. Bourne held Conklin at gunpoint. Finally, he was face to face with his direct superior. Bourne questioned Conklin, the man who knew his past best. The ultimate question, "Who am I?" Conklin told Bourne that he was a secret asset of the U.S. government, something the U.S. spent $30 million to train into a killing weapon. Conklin demanded answers about that night 3 weeks ago, when he went to kill Wombosi. What exactly happened? That's when Bourne finally remembered. 3 weeks earlier, he really did board Wombosi's yacht to assassinate him. But just as he was about to do it, he saw children with Wombosi. His innate decency stirred compassion, so he called it off and walked away. But security rushed in and shot him. Wounded, Bourne blacked out in the sea. That's why he'd been shot, lost his memory, and washed up to the fishing boat. Bourne finally remembered everything. But now he didn't want to be an assassin anymore. Jason Bourne died 3 weeks ago. There was only a Bourne who wanted a normal life. Bourne heard movement outside. He knew Conklin's men had arrived. He knocked Conklin out and rushed outside. Conklin walked out. Bourne had already taken everyone down and disappeared. Treadstone had completely failed because of Bourne. Conklin wandered the street alone, defeated. Coming toward him was the third activated agent, Mannheim. He killed Conklin. It turned out to be an order from Conklin's boss. Abbott ordered Mannheim to do it because he knew Bourne couldn't be brought back, and he feared the whole plan would be exposed and burn him too. So he had Conklin eliminated. Bourne vanished into the streets once again, but this time he wasn't lost anymore. At a congressional hearing, Abbott explained to Congress that Treadstone was just a failed experiment and had now been shut down. Then he introduced a new program called Blackbriar on the beautiful coast of Biarritz, France. Marie was running a small shop renting scooters to tourists that day. A familiar voice spoke from behind her. "Is this your shop?" "Yeah." "Nice. This place is a bit hard to find." This film is a 2002 action movie titled The Bourne Identity. Upon its release, it was passionately embraced by fans around the world. It was followed by several sequels. All of them were well loved by audiences, becoming the third major franchise after James Bond and Mission Impossible in the spy action genre. Unlike the two famous franchises before it, Bourne doesn't rely on flashy gadgets, nor does it depend on spectacular visual effects. Instead, it delivers a cold, brutally realistic action style, with tightly structured, logical tactical thinking. And during filming, the director deliberately used subtle handheld camera shaking, which made the film feel even more real, almost like watching a documentary, a rare and outstanding suspense action film. The video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Thank you, everyone. See you in the next video.